Hello, welcome. We're here, we're live. I'm alive. Are you alive? I think we're all alive. Uh, this could be lost. Maybe we're not alive. Hey, my name is Josh Foreman. I make fantasy novels. Check them out. They've got tons of beautiful illustrations in them. Let's see if I can flip to a beautiful illustration right off the bat. I put a bookmark in here. Oh, look at that. Beautiful illustration. Take my word for it. We're not going to dwell on that. Hey, all my socials are up above. Let's see. Up above that way. Yeah. You can follow me there. I stream regularly on Wednesday nights and Sunday afternoons. And also here every week, right now. This is when I do it. And today, so last night I got everything set up and prepped and tested so that I could do just a full procedure here. I've got this iron gate that I made. These hinges are findings for jewelry boxes, I believe. Just plain it straight up hinges. These little decorative elements are from like fake little metal keys that you can get, just decorative keys, and I sawed the rest of the key part off. Everything else is barbecue skewer for the shafts. Little rubber O-rings to make these little flare out parts, and then I blended them up into the barbecue skewer with, what did I use? I used a variety of things, mostly epoxy clay or epoxy sculpt, one of those two, depending on what I have around. It was epoxy clay. And I think that probably gets us up to date on what we're doing here. This is supposed to be, for a little bit of context here, we've got a, right now we're in this very awkward phase where most of the parts are created, but they have not been stuck together yet. So every time I move anything, everything wiggles and falls over. We'll get past that awkward growing stage soon. But yeah, here's the idea. Oh, there's a giant truck. So I created these side pillars here, and these hinges are gonna fit in like so, and then swing open and close. And I still do not have them to where they can reliably like stay in place. Just because it's way easier to paint them when they are not attached to the stone. So, also for even more context, this is the base of my dice tower, and the dice are gonna come through the tower, which is not currently attached, down here, down these stairs, into this little wading pool here, and that's where you get your result. Unless you have the house rules activated, in which case, if your dice manages to roll out here with enough veracity, verisimilitude, it rolls out with violence and breaks through the gate, because the gates are going to be on hinges, and if your dice escapes, then you get to say whatever number you want. That's my house rules for this particular dice tower. All right. So I've done some amount of iron work in there already, just to make sure that these particular weathering pigments that I'm using are gonna work. There's a variety of other elements that are going to be up the tower further. You'll be able to see your dice tumble through the tower by looking through these windows. Okay, so is that enough context? For even more context, this guy here is Colossus from the video game Shadow of the Colossus, which I scratch built, and this dice tower is part of his giant underground dungeon arena. But since I was making a giant tower, I was like, might as well make it a dice tower. Okay, here we go. For real this time. I'm just reusing the cup that I was using last night. I've got a variety of pigments that I'm using. So here's a rust set, right? And it comes with dark through light. But I think the one I was using before was this Humbrol brand. And sadly, I think I left it out to make sure I wouldn't forget which one of these two I used. And I'm worried, and then I put it away immediately without taking note of which one it was. So I'm not exactly sure, but because I'm wanting to err on the side of this is very old ruins, I don't think there's going to be a lot of active rust. Like that really bright rust, you know, will be on iron for, I don't know, I'm guessing here, like 50, 100 years, something like that. I'm positing that these ruins are older than that. So there will be some amount of rust, but it's not going to be that vibrant, like bright yellow and orange rust. I'm wanting to go more for the duller, darker rust. Weathering pigments can be used in a variety of ways. The way I'm using it today is I'm essentially, so pigments are like what is in your paint. Your acrylic paint is a medium with pigment suspended in it, you know, a powder basically. And the pigment is no medium. So I'm going to mix it into medium, which turns it back into paint. I mean, not that it ever was paint before, but you know what I mean. It's essentially making a new paint. The advantage to doing this is that I can control how chunky and lumpy I want my paint to be. And for rust, it's really useful to have chunky, lumpy paint. So just put a couple drops in there. And because we're going chunky lumpy, I'm just mixing with my crappy brush, which is a perfect kind of brush for dabbing thick mud onto a surface. Yes, dice violence. Exactly. Chunk lump, not sludge coat, which both are hard for me to say right now because I'm all congested from copious allergies in my area. Very nasally today. Okay, so this is almost a regular paint consistency. I probably should have started with the powder and then slowly added in a drop or two of medium. Let's remember that for the next coat because we're going to do a couple today. Oh, another thing I should have mentioned is that the base coat of this was Mod Podge with pure black, and then I did Mod Podge with that same pure black paint, but I mixed in some silver. I'd say probably about 50-50, so it gives me this dull, you know, you can tell there's a little bit of metallic in there, but it's not like shiny metal. I don't want any of this to be shiny. It's almost like a gunmetal. And the silver I used was just cheap old crap, craft slash crap paint, outdoor metallics by Folk Art. So. Like I find if you're doing dull metallics, using the cheap craft paint is a good way to save a few bucks. Alright, always start on the back, just in case something insane happens that I'm not expecting. And so I'm wanting to get this mostly around the joints, tips, places where water is more likely to hang around for longer. I'm probably going to end up covering about 80% of this surface. I just want to have a little bit of, let's see, can we get better focus here? How are we doing? There we go. So especially where there's kind of shape going on as opposed to just a straight cylinder, that's where you're going to get water condensing, or condensing is not the right word. What does water do when it just sits there for a while? It's like stagnant, but I don't know if it counts if it's like it just slowly, it rolls down the surface slower, which means it's going to have more of an effect. And so the surface was already kind of lumpy. You can see that I purposely dabbed on the Mod Podge mix pretty thick, so you can see lots of surface perturbation there, and we're just going for even more of it. I always have to purposefully subvert my impulse, which is to do a very consistent application. You know, I want it to like travel way up here on some and then not much on others, to try to reproduce the randomness that occurs when you're doing, or when nature does its thing. Thinking about how to convert a crappy thin bookshelf you have into a coffin bookshelf. Ooh, facade to mimic coffin shape. Like a upright coffin? I assume, not a laying down coffin. Sounds pretty cool. So what we've got now is, because this is, I used a specifically matte medium, this is knocking down the shine. So you're gonna see a little, like, now by comparison to the very matte, like darker grungy finish, the metal seems fairly metallic. And we're gonna continue to knock that back a little bit through subsequent washes and stuff, but I still want you to be able to see a bit of a difference, right? So you're thinking of decorating the sides of the coffin or something with like some XPS foam decor or something like that? So it's a nice sunny day. I'm gonna go set this out in the sun so it can dry and we can start the next coat as soon as we're done with this one. We can just kind of bounce back and forth between these. One moment. Oh yeah, I forgot I need to record a little bit of footage for my upcoming video on this process. You know what that makes me think of would be fun to do if you've got a coffin bookshelf. You should do a book nook near the top that's like a skull peeking through the books or something like that, or a vampire face, or something creepy like that. Could be really cool. Synergy, I tell ya. I saw a book nook of Jack Nicholson's face, like breaking through books. It's really cool. Could be something along those lines. I love that book nooks are becoming like a fully fledged art form in and of themselves now. Just when you thought physical books were dead. So this one is like so dark that it feels almost like just black paint, but it has a little bit of grunge to it. It's going to be a little more powdery, but I'm going to. So I'm pretty sure that was not the color that I must have started with this lighter one last time. Actually, for consistency's sake, let's show this one first. Okay. Smoke. And then this one is called Dark Earth. Okay, and I'm just gonna mix it right into what I've got there already. What is it about Shadow of Colossus that inspired me to spend years of my life doing fan art for it? um, Something about the aesthetic um, resonates very deeply with me. And by aesthetic, I don't mean strictly the visual aesthetic, um, but the gameplay, the thematic part. Like, it all ties together so well, and it also, in my mind, is one of the perfect examples of how narrative, like compelling narrative, can be delivered through gameplay as opposed to cutscenes. Okay, you can see how thick that is. And I always wanted some collectibles from, you know, it's one of my favorite games. I always wanted collectibles from it, but they never made any good ones. So it's like, well, guess I'm gonna have to do it myself. 7 years later, I'm almost done. Okay, so the idea with these coats is that I'm progressively doing a little bit less. It's okay if there's like some of this that is in areas that the darker stuff is not, but in general, I'm sticking to places where I've already hit it with the darker stuff. And then each subsequent lighter coat, I'll do less and less. Got a lot of skulls to choose from. Excellent. Another reason I'm doing a Shadow of Colossus is because I started this project in 2009, a different project. This one is called the Cutscene Subversion Project, and it's a video series, like commentary mini-series, um, about why I think video games should try as hard as they can, the video game industry should try as hard as they can to stop using cutscenes. Not because cutscenes are bad, not because I don't like them, because both of those things are not true, because I think as an art form, we as an industry are not going to figure ourselves out until we stop relying on other mediums to carry the weight, the narrative weight that we want to deliver. All right, so that's very subtle difference here, but that's okay. The next one will get considerably lighter. And because Shadow of Colossus is a great kind of case study of a direction you could go to accomplish that, I'm working the creation of it. I filmed the entire thing. I'm working the creation of it into that video series, which again is now 11, 12 years old, but it'll come out, I promise. One sec. Motivations for actions very interesting in people. Motivations as far as the topic I was talking about, like video game cutscenes, or a different subject. To me, the topic is endlessly fascinating because there's such a difference between. Um, oh, Shane's back.
Hello.
Hello. There's such a difference between like linear narrative edited stories, linear. What am I calling them? Linear edited narratives, which is what you see in television and film and novels and comics, etc. Right? Um, musicals. The point is that you're presenting characters who have a problem. They have to overcome them. Their feelings about the situation are explicated through dialogue, usually, or some kinds of action. And so that is like what humans have evolved to find captivating is that process. And the edited part comes in the fact that the stories don't generally show everything in a character's life. It's picking and choosing the most interesting parts. I'm going to stop talking while the garbage truck goes by. Okay. Really do not need much of this. So this was mixing with the dark that I had on my brush, which is bringing me to somewhere between what I had and the new one. There's no science to this. It's a very simple idea of simply going from darker to lighter. So the particular stages that you go along the way are not important. It's just the more interim tones you have, the longer it's going to take you. You know? But given how fast and slapdash this, process is, it's not like it's a huge sacrifice to have to do 5 coats instead of 3 or whatever. It's just. The Mod Podge will seal the matte when dry. Yes, except, so this matte medium, also, like, come to think of it, for whatever reason, you know, acrylic paint is pretty much a medium with the pigment in it, right? Um, but with the medium separate and then the pigment mixed in, I find that it doesn't reactivate with water the same way regular acrylics do. I'm not sure why that is. I'm sure a chemist or a better artist could explain that. Yeah, I do not know what that super loud engine sound is out there, but it is sure unpleasant. I apologize if you guys can hear that. You use dry pigment for bases, fixative, and it seals the pigment to wherever you put it on, but it dries with the powdery look. Yeah, yeah, I have some of that right here. No, not there. Oh, where did I put my fixative? Well, there it is. Okay, yeah, I've got this pigment fixer. I have not fully experimented with all the permutations of pigments, so how do you apply the fixative? Do you use an airbrush or a paintbrush? It seems like you can't really use a paintbrush because that would um, like pick the powder up and put it onto your brush, and then you're just like smearing paint around, right? I guess you could also use an eyedropper, which is probably going to also do a little bit of displacement. I have watched some videos on the process, but that was a while ago. I should look that up again. Trying to decide if I want to go a hair brighter on a few spots. I think if I do, here's what I'll do. I'll mix that itty bitty bit of light rust into what I've got going here. And again, it's blending in with the last darker one I have because I don't want to go full rusty rust on this. Going very old rusty rust. And I'm going to use a itty bitty garbage brush I got here, just complete disaster of a brush. It'll let me just kind of pinpoint the areas where I think having some, you know, like the water could truly build up on these sections. Mostly along the tops of things. Just kissing a few spots. You mix the fixative with the pigment and then mash it on. Oh, okay. Interesting. I should try that and see what difference it makes. It's kind of a sedate day today, isn't it? Even after I dropped my hot take on cutscenes, no one converted into a keyboard warrior and started debating me. about we just move the camera to where my hands are naturally resting instead of contorting my body continually. That is the point of having such a nice flexible camera. Oh, my hot take on the cutscene is that they're bad. Strictly that they are bad for the art form of video games, the long-term health of the art form of video games as an art form. I believe they will not find our voice as an art form. Speaking as a video game developer, I say this. We will not find our voice until we figure out how to speak narrative in our own medium, as opposed to switching to a different medium of linear edited storytelling. That is my hot take. Which I always have to point out, I take great pains to say it's not because I don't like cutscenes, or because I don't like people who make them, or because I think games that have them are bad. I just think they are not healthy for the art form. Alright, this guy next. I don't know, maybe it's not a hot take anymore. Maybe it's a mainstream idea. Back when I started writing the script for it in 2007 or 8, it was a very hot take. And I would get in big debates with people about it. It is. Well, is it fundamental? I would not say it's fundamental. I would say it is contingent upon probably technological innovations that allow us to tell more flexible stories and give players the same kind of freedom that they have in tabletop RPGs. It is fundamental at this time, but it's kind of like saying, like, fossil fuels are fundamental to our economic viability as a species. It's like, well, that is the case now. We are working to change that. Cutscenes have contributed to how many walking simulators come out. Yeah. Maybe. I think the need to tell a compelling narrative, to tie your actions to a motivation that people care about and understand, that's the impulse behind the cutscene. And the reason the cutscene developed was because the medium of video games can't currently do what linear edited narratives can do when it comes to that impulse. I think there's a lot of parallels to the musical or opera, right? It's like you can have a concert where you listen to music playing, but that's always going to be way less popular than a musical that has a linear narrative attached to it, simply because human brains crave seeing humans go through challenges. And there's nothing wrong with musicals. You know, they didn't completely supplant just straight up concerts. But there's also the difference between the musical concert versus musical is that both of those things are passive media where you sit there and absorb content as opposed to participate in creating the content. So yeah, video games are kind of a peculiar bird in that way, and thus require peculiar artistic and philosophical problem solving. Alright, I think I'm pretty happy with this. It's going to be toned down when I do a black wash over everything. Well, blackish brownish wash over everything. Let's check it out in context and make sure everything is going according to plan. Oh, I missed your comment, Akatak. Two goals are at odds with each other. Either you can tell a story, or players can have free will to choose options that game designers haven't dreamed of. I don't think that's entirely true. I think it's currently economically impossible and logistically impossible to give you both. But again, I think that is a technological problem rather than intrinsic to the medium. You could look at Star Trek's holodeck and see, you know, basically what they're doing is they're providing a simulation with parameters to it, and players are free to do what they want in that, and because the technology and the AI is sophisticated enough, it can roll with whatever the players want to do. But that requires a level of simulation we can't currently achieve. Okay, I think I need to break out my wash, and we're gonna start washing. We're gonna get wishy-washy. I'm going to grab some stuff. Give me like 45 seconds to a minute. Be right back. wash procured. Yep, got out my forklift, went into the warehouse, the wash warehouse, where I keep tons of barrels of wash. All right, I need to mix this up. It's been sitting for a while. Let's use this. What are you doing, windswept? Cut it out. No death metal. I mean, personally, I love death metal, but not appropriate for all streams. So this wash is created with, let's see, this one I did, I believe, matte medium. Let's see, about a third of that, about 10% ink, mostly brown, probably like 70% brown, 30% black, water, obs, you need lots of water, and a couple drops of dish soap. I think I've got all the sediment on the bottom kicked up enough. And you know what? I'm gonna throw on some gloves, because for some reason, even though it's called a wash, it tends to get messy. You would think a wash would make things cleaner. Now, having a wash in a cute little pooter bottle, I don't know what this is, squeeze bottle? I like to call it a pooter bottle because it puts it onto your surface. You can get it into the cracks really well this way. Spinner gate out here. You know what? I think I'm going to let's give it a couple more minutes. Then I'm going to do a matte clear coat over this. No. Yes? Matte or satin? It's always hard with metal and rust, right? Because rust is a pretty matte thing. And, well, actually, come to think of it, because I don't care about killing the little bit of metallic glint that's still in there. Not killing it, but reducing it. Going matte is probably the best way to go. Alright. I think I'm going to remove my little swimming pool tile. Yeah, because I'm pretty happy with the way this surface is. I don't want to get it even darker. I'll definitely darken it up around the edges after I get all this done, but I don't want to get like spurts or splashes on it right now. Shine Murder. It's the name of my death metal band. Let's see. This is my practice side, so we're going to start there first. I'm going to use a makeup brush. I'm going to start with this one and see how it works out, because generally I want to be able to spread the wash around without agitating it so much that it makes bubbles. Oh, this is a very cheap set that I got, and it looks like it's got stray hairs. That is the worst. Okay, maybe I will not use this. I'll give it a try, and if I start getting hairs in my finish, I'll switch. So this has been sprayed with a satin clear coat. The more matte a clear coat is, the more it's going to accept the wash, and it'll be harder to scrub off to get back to the pure base coat color, which depending on what you're trying to do is good or not good. In this case, I'm wanting to darken everything down a bit. I'm gonna still be doing a dry brush over it. Right now it has what I call the clown pass, which is the color variations on it. I've got 4 different color variations. I took the base gray, and then I made a blue version, a green, a brown, there's like a more greenish yellow and a more yellowish yellow. Oh, this is the more yellowish yellow. It's hard to tell. Need a smaller one for here. It's pretty epic wash music going on here. Makes it feel like it's a life or death wash happening. Should also note, any place where I feel like I couldn't get enough of the wash off of it, I can always go back in with the color, because I have all my colors like set aside in these bottles, right? So I can always go back and like brighten any areas that I want with my clown colors before going in and doing my wash or my dry brush afterwards. Kind of like the idea of a booze battle, though. you see the way it's breaking up into these little blobbies instead of going over? That's because of the satin coat that's on top of it. But by the time you go back in and wipe it all down, you do not have that effect much at all. And where it still is, I'm totally cool with, because having natural variegation in stone, especially old stone, is always a good look. Weep for me. So I'm totally cool with, the dark paint running down an edge like this, right? What I want to avoid is having drop-sized stains, because that gives away the scale. So what I usually end up doing is going in by hand and just adding a few streaks where I need them. It's always nice and convenient when the wash gives you a natural age streak, but yeah, usually I end up killing it just because it's a little too scale, or not to scale, to actual scale, and not to the scale I want to be perceived scale. Also go in and touch up a little areas where I want some additional grime buildup. Very good. Let's work on this bad boy next. So probably the best approach. I have a lot of little deep areas that I probably want to get my stuff in first, so that I'm not having to mess up the rest of the process. Again, this is where my little squeezy bottle comes in really handy. Oh, also because I know this sort of thing is going to happen as I tilt it around, right? And I'd rather that not happen after I've got a finish that I'm happy with. Oh man, no idea how many hours this project has taken so far. I counted how long it took me to sculpt the Colossus. I had an iPad that I just hit the, the stopwatch on every time I worked on it. And I can't even remember what that was. I want to say it was like 1,000 something hours, maybe 1,500 hours. This one is much less than that, but I tend to gauge it in how many weeks and or months I've been working on a thing. Since, obviously most of my day goes to my day job. And then evenings and weekends it goes to this. I want to say I probably spend about 20 hours a week on streaming slash, well, it's actually got to the point where I think I stream almost every thing that I do outside of work. Art related. I'm sorry, I don't do the hot tub streaming or the eating food streams or the sleep streams. I don't do those either. I know you are all going to be very disappointed to hear that. Unfollow for no sleep streams. Understandable. Can't quite. Oh, there we go. Looking pretty filthy in a good way. That will be considerably diminished after the dry brush. It's looking considerably better than it did. Now this one got more of a gloss coat because I had run out of my satin, and I'm honestly not sure. I figured I should do the floor with gloss, if anything. You know, having to choose between glossing a floor versus glossing a wall, figure it's more likely they will have polished the floor simply by walking over it, if nothing else. Delicious chocolate syrup. Maybe if I was making a cake, ruins. I'm actually surprised at how well the wash is covering, like, really consistently, even though it's such a glossy clear coat. It's time to splurge on another paper towel. That's right, big spender here today. You can call me the Mr. Beast of Twitch streaming. Just going crazy, spending money like mad. So it is pooling up in the cracks a little more than I want. But I don't really want to like go in by hand and clear these out because I do want that darkness in there. But given that, yeah, actually, since it is a wash, it's mostly going to dry away and just leaving the pigment behind, which should be fine. We'll see. All right, masters of the stream, we're coming up on my hour and a half, so if you want to queue up our raid, please do so now. And I'll just play us out by washing on and washing off, like Mr. Miyagi told me to. Wash on, wash off. My name is Josh Foreman. I stream and YouTube lots of art-related stuff, including terrain making, sculpting, map making, book cover illustrating, please go to Amazon.com and buy my book, The Scarred King. Books 1 and 2 are currently available. I've got lots of fun art in them. Please follow me on any of the socials that are up there. And feel free to come watch the rest of this process as it unfolds on my Josh Foreman stream. We'll see you guys next time. Next time.